It'll be alright.
Yeah, you'll be fine. It's not actually fine.
All right. All right. I think we're on.
Cool.
This is Marty Weatherall once again coming to you live from the Player Up Esports Tournament at Mystic Lake Casino, and I am extremely pleased to be joined by a guy I've known for a little while, but you know, your profile has only been growing ever since I've known you. It's been fun to watch the ride. This is Chris Spangler, also known as Phluxy, the best pilot that I know, and you proved it at the DRL simulator tryouts just last weekend in Las Vegas. This is your newest DRL pilot on ESPN. Drone Racing League has finally figured out what we all knew, which is you are an amazing pilot. Chris, tell us about how you got into drone racing in the first place.
So I originally saw some like freestyle videos of people doing like some cool cinematic shots, and they were doing like flips and stuff and able to get footage that I'd never seen in drones before, and I was like, I want to do that. It kind of like mixed like the extreme sports world of like skateboarding and like cinematography and like nerdy video gaming. So it was like this kind of like mashup of everything that I already liked. So it was pretty easy to draw me towards it, and I got into that.
What year was that?
Summer 2017-ish.
Okay.
And then, so I started playing a simulator because that was basically the route that everyone pointed me towards. Just get a radio first and then fly a simulator, learn how to fly, and you won't break a lot of stuff when you do it.
Where were you getting that advice?
The internet. Pretty much. YouTube. And so I started flying the simulator. A lot of the simulators have online racing that you can race against other guys. I just like one day hopped in some online races. It was really fun, and that kind of like sparked the interest. Like the competitive side of me was like reignited. I didn't think that I was going to do this competitively when I first imagined flying drones, but then I was introduced to that, and I kind of just like stuck with it, grinded it out, put in way too much time, but it's finally paying off.
You had played video games before, right?
Yes, I played Call of Duty competitively a long time ago. I still play like competitive games at home pretty much every day, but not to the extent and like the amount of time that I put into this.
Okay. So, had a history with video games, found this, bought a transmitter, started with the simulator. What was the first time that you actually flew a real drone with your transmitter?
I can find that out for you right now, because the very first flight that I ever had, I posted to YouTube.
So what's great about FPV drone flying is that there's a camera built into it, because that's how you guys fly. You fly through the goggles. So you'd done the simulator. When you flew for the first time, you were on the goggles?
Yeah, the first time,
first time FPV, right?
Yeah, first time FPV. So this was actually it right here. This is my very first time, June 7th, 2017.
Oh my
that was
gosh.
the first time I flew a drone FPV.
I will tell you, that's right around the time that we created Hydra FPV, actually. I have to look back at the date. I think it was like June 13th or something of that same year. So just days after Chris first flew a real drone for the first time. But was it easy coming off of the simulator experience? You spent a fair amount of time on the simulator. What was different?
It was nerve-wracking because there was money on the line at this point in time. It was all funded by me at that point.
How much had you spent on your initial array?
With GoPro and the drone and everything, I would say probably around $600-700 just for the drone that I was flying. So it was a lot of money flying through the air, and it was you got a little nervous, but I already had the muscle memory down. I knew what to do if things were getting shaky, so I went out and I flew and I had a good time, and it transferred pretty much like almost perfectly.
Would you recommend that anybody starting right now would start that exact same way, rather than buying a little tiny whoop set and flying around a little kind of indestructible micro quad around the house? Would you Would you invest in a better transmitter that can work on a simulator and go that route?
Yeah, I would absolutely say that that's the way to go, because you're gonna learn a lot faster, because you're gonna get a lot more flight time, because you don't have to change batteries, charge batteries, change props, do all that kind of stuff. You could just hit a reset button and keep flying. And you're not gonna break stuff and waste a lot of money.
Right. And how much does a simulator cost? You usually pay one-time license?
20 bucks, yeah. About 20 bucks for pretty much any of them. There are some free ones out there now that are pretty good.
And you pay that once and then you got it?
Yep, pay that once and it's done.
And when they upgrade, do you get upgrades, or do you have to pay for the upgrades?
You get the upgrades for free. Like every time they update it, it just automatically downloads it. There are some, I believe there's like one that's a subscription.
Okay.
But you don't have to go that route. There are other options.
We have Velocidrone here at our booth at Player Up. Velocidrone is supporting our presence here, and I think they're about 20 bucks, right, for a license. Just go to velocidrone.com.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a pretty high quality visual sim.
Very high quality. I would say Velocidrone is as close to real life drone flying as you're going to get.
Okay.
It flies really good. Really, really good.
That's great. Well, we have it here at our booth. If you're in the area, you should come down to Mystic Lake. An amazing esports tournament happening here, and we've got a simulator that you can try. We've got pilots like Chris coming through all day. So Chris, by the end of 2017, Hydra, we started putting on races, and you started showing up at our races. We were racing the little tiny whoops, these little guys, palm-sized FPV drones. I didn't realize you had started not long before that. How long did it take you to get into the tiny whoops, and how did you create your tiny whoop collection?
That was the first time I had ever flown a tiny whoop, actually.
Really?
I didn't. I had no interest in it. I wanted nothing to do with it at the time. But you guys are putting on races, and I was working with Josh at the time, and he was just like, "Dude, I'll give you one. Go fly at the races." And just do it. And I was like, okay, whatever, dude. So he gave me one. I went to the races. I flew it. It was fun. I did pretty well. And it kind of like sparked the interest in tiny whoops.
You hadn't even practiced. Did you practice with it before you came to the race? Like
I flew it a little bit at home, but not really like practice with it. I don't practice the tiny whoops at all.
Really?
No, it's not. I think that if you practice with 5 inches enough and you can fly really well in acro, you don't need to practice something that flies in angle mode, because you're taking it, it's making it easier for you.
Got it. Okay. So you started showing up at our events. You were winning our events. I think. Did you win the first Bauhaus one? I know you won at Lakes and Legends.
Yeah, I don't think it was Bauhaus. No, Bauhaus. Not the first Bauhaus one, but the first Bauhaus one with the cup.
Yes.
Yes.
That's right. So. We did one big Bauhaus race during Startup Week 2017 with AirViews, but it wasn't really a race of any sort of there was no organization. But a month later, it was actually the day after Thanksgiving, 2017, Black Friday race back at Bauhaus Brew Labs. You won that one. Then you won during Super Bowl week in 2018 when the Super Bowl was here in Minneapolis. That was at Lakes and Legends tap room, amazing tap room. But right after that, I think you went to New York, right?
That was literally the day after that. I flew to New York.
And what was in New York?
New York was the 2018 Swatch DRL tryouts.
Okay.
And
what exactly is DRL doing with their tryouts?
So they're taking players and turning them into pilots. They're taking the best players that they have on their simulator and giving them a chance to fly on a stage, and whoever wins that gets a contract to be a professional pilot on the Drone Racing League.
So if you're really good at the video game, you get to fly the real thing.
Mm-hmm.
I know I've talked to you about this before, but there was a movie back in the 80s called The Last Starfighter, and there was a guy that was really good at the video game, and then the aliens came and they recruited him to fly the real spaceship. And that's what this is, right? If you're really good at the video game version, the simulator, they give you a real drone to fly. Now, what do we have here?
So this here is the Racer 3. This is the drone that was flown on the previous 2 seasons of DRL.
Drone Racing League.
Yep, Drone Racing League. And it's a really, I mean, it's an awesome aircraft. It has LEDs all the way through it. It's got a decent amount of power. It doesn't go super fast, but it's made so that the races are close. It comes down to the pilot's skill taking lines rather than who has the fastest drone.
And that thing lights up. We don't have a battery right now, but that thing lights up.
Yeah.
And so when you watch Drone Racing League on ESPN and these things are zooming around, they are clearly color-coded. Each one in a different color, so you know who's who. Very, theatrical for television, of course. So you went to New York right after you won our race at the Lakes and Legends tap room with these little tiny whoop guys. You competed in the simulator tournament in 2018. What happened there?
So went to New York, competed with those guys, and we got destroyed by a dude named Robogenesis. I ended up getting 4th that year. So it kind of was like, I was coming back for redemption the next year. I knew that I had a good shot if I put in a lot more work and really focused on it. So I just kind of like tried to break down exactly what I did, what I could do to make it, to raise my chances of winning the next year, and kind of just like went to camp.
And by work, we're just talking about hours, right? Like
hours and strategy. There's a lot of strategy that came into it.
Okay.
It wasn't just, you can't just brute force your way in and just sit there and pound out the hours and expect to win. You have to have a little bit of a game plan.
Well, a year later, January, I guess, no, it was February.
February, yeah.
February 2019 was the next DRL simulator tournament presented by Swatch, right? The tryouts. And that was last week in Las Vegas. And in the year in between, you've been racing at our races. I reached out to, if you remember Jim Mahoney, he was the first guy who announced our tasting tour races. And he's from Boston originally, and he's a big Patriots fan. And I was reaching out to him, talking trash before the Super Bowl this year about the Patriots, because I just don't like the Patriots. And he writes back to me, the Patriots are the Phluxy of the NFL. So, you heard it here first, folks. Yeah. So, of course, they went on to win the Super Bowl. You went to Las Vegas this time, last weekend. Now, there was a big outdoor multi-GP race happening. The big 5-inch quads, the fast, that go like well over 100 miles an hour, 150 miles an hour. You fly those quads, you're in the multi-GP. You could have raced in that race. You did not race in the outdoor race.
Yeah. So I decided to concede from that race because, one, I knew that my chances of winning the DRL simulator was way higher. And two, there was way more money in the DRL simulator. Like, it didn't make sense. Like, I guess if you were underage and you couldn't win the DRL sim, have at it, young guys. Like,
as they did.
They can go out there and duke it out. Yeah, and they did. They destroyed everyone. But for me, the right move was the DRL sim. I didn't really have any obligations to race at that race. I wasn't like super sponsored up by a bunch of companies that were like, no, you have to be here racing this race. So I got lucky on that end. So I could just kind of say, sorry guys, I'm conceding this year. I'm going to do this, and that's what I did.
Well, Hydro was out at the MultiGP Championship. The entire Final Four were all teenagers. We were talking a little bit earlier. Those kids have basically unlimited time to practice. They've got extremely quick reflexes. So the kids dominated the outdoor race. But later that Saturday night was the big DRL event at the Luxor Hotel in that amazing esports arena they have there. You looked awesome up on stage. It was a big production, an amazing venue, and you're up against some stiff competition, but explain how that night unfolded last Saturday night.
So, man, it's crazy. Like, the first Well, first of all, I must preface this by saying that a lot of my game is a mind game with people. I like to kind of throw little shots at people, get into their head, trying to make sure that they know that I'm confident and that I feel good up on that stage. Mm-hmm. So, and that's exactly what I did beforehand. I'd kind of joke with people a little bit and give them a couple stabs in the gut and try to mess up their head. And so I did that before the race, and I went out first heat in the quarterfinals. I won that race, and I was amped. I was like, yep, it's going. Won the second one. I started getting more. I started building momentum, and I ended up winning all 5 of the quarterfinals, and that kind of
sent a message.
Yeah, it did send a message. It sent a message of I'm here. I told you guys I was coming here to do this, and I am doing this. And everyone was kind of like, oh man, this doesn't look good, And so quarterfinals come around. I had a really stiff quarterfinal heat, and those guys they were fast. And I messed up a couple times. I hit some stuff. I got behind. But by the end of the quarterfinals, I managed to sneak in enough points to still get the #1 spot. So that also, again, kind of fed into the mental game. I was feeling really good. I got lucky enough that I was I literally came off of stage and then right back onto the stage into the finals. So I already had that momentum going. I didn't have to sit and wait and watch other people race.
Yeah.
And then coming into the finals.
6 pilots in the finals?
6 pilots in the finals. I just didn't pay attention to anyone else. I did my thing. I think I had a lot of people in the crowd supporting me, and that kind of helped out.
We were chanting.
Yeah, hearing my name coming, erupting from the crowd, kind of helped me out a little bit. By the time I hit, so there's 7 heats in the final. By the time I hit that 4th heat, I was ahead by 10 points, I think. I looked over, people started chanting my name, I looked over at the other people on the stage. They kind of had this defeated look on their face. And at that point in time, that's when I knew. I was like, this is over. I've got this. This is happening tonight. And I just continued to do what I was doing, and I ended up taking it and winning.
You won it with a heat to spare. There was an extra heat after you had already had your victory speech, just to figure out 2nd, 3rd, 4th place and everything. But yeah, you crushed. And we were chanting, Phluxy, Phluxy, Phluxy. There was a sizable crowd there, but I'm happy to say that because of the races we put on around the Twin Cities with Hydra, it wasn't the first time you'd flown in front of a crowd cheering. They asked you, what's this like? Racing in front of people for probably the first time. And you kind of dodged the question. It wasn't the time to get into details, but I knew that we've been trying to figure out how to do this for real in front of lots of people just like that. That simulator is really fun to watch, though. That is a really amazing game. And tell me about, can you tell what everyone else is doing when you're in that first-person view? We're watching third-person view up on the big screen, but what do you know about what else is happening around you?
So, with those races, since they were so close, within a second of each other, you can't see the person in front of you. You can hear them, but you can't see anyone. The one thing that really helped me out, though, was in between heats, I could go sit and I could watch, and everyone was watching third person, you could see all the trails. I could watch people's lines and see where they were going, and I could, in my head, map out where I needed to cut corners in order to take them. So, I don't know if you noticed, but I was watching everyone coming up the bridge, and when they would come up the bridge, they would kind of come a little wide.
It's like the Golden Gate Bridge,
right? When they got to that little bow tie section, they would come wide, and I was like, that's kind of interesting that they're all doing that. So going into the last few ones, I said I'm gonna play it safe all the way up until that point, and then once I get to that spot, I'm gonna hug the bridge as close to it as I can, and instead of arcing out, I'm just gonna go straight up and then cut in. And every single time when I did that, it put me up in the front against them. So
Wow.
it ended up working.
So again, this was the simulator we were watching. These weren't real drones in the air. We were all at an esports arena at the Luxor Hotel in Las Vegas, watching them compete in the virtual space. And because Chris won that event, he's won a contract with the Drone Racing League. You will be on ESPN this summer. You've got dates happening all over the place, including 3 overseas, right? You're going to be traveling overseas. Is it the first time going out of the country to race?
To race, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been out of the country before, but to go race, it'll be fun. It's gonna be a fun year. I've got some other trips planned with some other pilots.
Cool.
I think I'm gonna take a trip up to Japan with a few guys. We're gonna go fly the mountains out there and go have a good time. So it'll be an interesting year for me.
Well, it's amazing how fast it's all happened. With a video game background, picking up FPV drone racing. I mean, less than a year from when you started flying, you took 4th in the DRL simulator tournament, and then a year later you took 1st, and now you're going to be on the biggest stage. We're very proud to have watched your rise and to have had you fly at as many events as you have. You know, you should know that Chris is so fast that sometimes we've had to like start him a little bit later than everybody else in the races that we do at Hydra. I don't think he likes that very much. I think it's messing with some of this mental game that he's trying to play if he has to start later and then he's having to play catch up. But we're just trying to make it, you know, interesting, because it's not very interesting when you're crushing. And a lot of times you come and you're not racing, but you freestyle around. Let's just talk for a minute about what's it like when you got your whoop, you're at a packed Hydra event, and you can just like fly through everybody's legs and arms and around their heads.
I enjoy that. I think that's one of the most fun things, because I just get to I get to share what FPV is to other people that don't understand it, and they get to see it, and they get to see how these things can actually maneuver, and they get like a better understanding when I do that of like, wow, if someone can control these things, they really can do a lot with it, you know, and that's what I enjoy doing, and showing people exactly what they can do.
Well, do you have any a message for the Twitch crowd in particular? People on Twitch, I know you've been streaming a lot of your sim stuff on Twitch. Put in a plug for your channel, and what would you say to everybody out there that's interested in what you've done and how they might be able to do something like that too?
Just keep going, keep doing it. A lot of the times when I would be practicing for the DRL sim, I didn't want to do it, and like it was boring at times, it was frustrating at times. It's just like training for any other sport, I guess. It's not going to be fun while you're training. It's only fun while you're competing, but if you're not ready to compete when you go to compete, then what's the point in competing? So just keep doing it and suck a lot, and then you'll get good eventually.
Well, it's so great to have you here. Thank you for being here. You will be at the AirViews Drone Video Awards in 2 days, on Monday, right? Drone Video Awards at Bauhaus Brew Labs, where we race all the time with Hydra. AirViews is putting on an award show for all the best drone videos, including some FPV. And immediately after, we're going to be putting on a race. Chris is going to be racing. Some great guys from out of town are coming in. Some of our best pilots from here in town. So if you're in the Twin Cities, go check out the AirViews Drone Video Awards Facebook event. There's a link there to buy tickets. They're free tickets. You don't have to buy them, but you just have to get a ticket. You can come see Chris fly. We are at the Player Up Esports Tournament. I'm going to let Chris walk around and check out some of the other gamers here in a second. But come see us. We're here all day today and tomorrow. I think some of the competitions here are heating up, so it'll be fun to watch. And yeah, thanks for being here and telling your story. I hadn't heard a lot of that stuff as long as I've known you, and it's just been a pleasure jumping into the sport and getting to know you and watching your rise, man. Thank you.
Thank you
very much. All right, so we're gonna just chat a little bit. You can take off. I gotta make sure I watch the stream over here and not cut it too soon because of the way we do this. We don't want to cut off the end, but do you know when your first race is gonna be yet? Don't know when and don't know where. You can't say. That's all right.
Yeah, there's speculations, but I'm still not allowed to say anything.
All right, I'm gonna peek over here and see if I can watch for the handshake moment.
I think it still should push it out.
Well, that's what's happening on Twitter. There it is. All right, we got the handshake. That's a good shot. All right, so Mike, if I've seen the visual signal